Like, yes, I know. Robin is the love of Ted's life, the one he has been obsessed with since the first episode. But I will like to posit that she's a much better fit for Barney than she would ever be with Ted. And it just sucks that the show insists on having her with Ted when Barney is right there. Ugh. If this is your first time stumbling on one of my videos or finding my channel, hello, I'm Noria, and I'm currently in the middle of my first time ever watch of How I Met Your Mother. As I'm going through the show, I'm making weekly videos sharing my thoughts about these characters and the show as a whole, just to have you all see where my mind keeps going and to document my thought process to see if anything I'm saying has merit and if the show would confirm or refute my claims in future episodes. As such, I do tend to tell my viewers that please be mindful of dropping spoilers. If you would like to go into conversation about anything I raised or mentioned in the video and it is spoilery for future seasons, then just put in the spoilers ahead warning, put down a bunch of asterisks, so I'll have to click on read more to get to your spoilers and then yap and comment away. And for those who are keeping track, I just finished How I Met Your Mother season 2 episode 12 titled First Time in New York, or as I like to call it, reason 101 million why Robin is much better fit for Barney than she is for Ted. But before I get into all of that, a synopsis of the episode for those of you who are willing to extend me the gift that is gracing me with your time and attention and listen to me yap about what happened in the episode. If you would rather just skip to my thoughts, which is okay as well, I do have timestamps so you can just skip right on over if that is what you would prefer. And with that said, How I Met Your Mother season 2 episode 12 picks up with Ted reminding us, the audience, and his kids about his dating faux pas that had him telling Robin he loved her, and a very normal reaction of being shocked and freaked out by this sudden confession on their first date, because you know that is how normal people would react. She takes things at a normal pace and needs to work up the courage to tell Ted that she loves him now that they are months into their relationship and he really has shaped up to be a pretty great boyfriend. But her words twist and she finds herself saying falafel instead, to Lily's amusement, who is later shocked when Robin admits that, well, she's never actually said those words to anyone before. That is why they are so difficult for her to say. Which, side note, did anyone else's heart sink when she said that? Because I just have the feeling that Robin is going to go all out and give Ted a heart, and Mr. I'm looking for the one, who always seems to have to continue with his search after whatever woman he's been with, has fallen into enough of an emotional commitment to him that would then see him realizing that maybe he's not really feeling it with her just yet and needs to keep looking for the one. To further understand this thought process of mine, please check out the first of my How I Met Your Mother videos titled Ted Mosby, the Con Artist. It's all in the playlist. But as I was saying, my heart sank because somewhere at the back of my mind, I wondered if after Robin makes that emotional commitment that she's never done before prior to meeting Ted, Ted would not in turn slowly edge away to continue his search for the one, leaving Robin out in the cold. Sorry, y'all, just in case you couldn't tell, I am staunchly team Ted Mosby is an emotional terrorist, so maybe I am being very unfair to him and this scenario would never happen, in which case, my bad. Anyway, Robin tells Lily that she never actually got the chance to reach that level in her relationship with the guys she's dated because she often finds herself looking for an exit the minute she hits the 3 weeks marks with them. Lily points out how similar that is to Barney's philosophy of relationships being a freeway, where he had highlighted to the gang back at McLaren's that, like every freeway, there are exits when the participants get to dip. 6 hours, 4 days, 3 weeks, 7 months, which he believes is the end date for Robin and Ted's relationship, by the way, 18 months, 18 years, then with the last exit being at death. The gang, of course, laugh it off, but a panicking Robin tells Lily that this is the longest relationship she's actually ever been in, ends the panicking. And as if Robin doesn't have enough on her plate to panic about, she and Lily are having this conversation at the airport while she's waiting for her baby sister to arrive. She's visiting her in New York. A baby sister who arrives with her boyfriend, Kyle, in tow, whose response to seeing Robin and Lily being hot. And like, I get it, they both are, but also, dude, that is your girlfriend's big sister, you weirdo. Anyway, baby sister Katie, who is played by Aria Montgomery, sorry, I meant Lucy Hale, informs Robin that her plan is to spend the night at Kyle's place as she very much has plans to lose her virginity to him that very same night. Information that scars Robin, who absolutely doesn't want her baby sister having sex that young, whilst my ass was just screaming, at least she's not losing it to her weird ass English teacher, Ezra Fitz, you must do jail, at my TV. But seriously though, I am an only child, so Robin having this knee-jerk, almost parental recoil at the thought of her sister having sex for the first time made no sense to me. Like, is this something common amongst older sisters? I would have thought that that would have been a great time instead to talk to her about protection and birth control so she isn't saddled with either a baby or an STI. But maybe that's just my only child brain talking. Also, before you drop it in the comments, yes, I am aware that the show was airing on cable and needed to be family friendly to an extent, and the network most certainly would not have approved of any sort of messaging that seemed to be encouraging kids to have sex that young. I was just curious is all. Anyway, Robin manages to finagle Katie away from Kyle for one night and uses that same night to meet up with the crew at McLaren's, begging them for suggestions on how to convince her baby sister not to lose her virginity just yet. Of course, Ted and Marshall are drawing a blank, and Barney is like, discouraging premarital sex is against my religion, which made me cackle like a banshee. The next morning, the gang sets their plans in motion when, together with Robin, they bring Katie to see the Empire State Building in a bid to convince her to not give up her virginity just yet, except for Barney, of course. No one was expecting Barney to attempt to speak abstinence to Katie, which, of course, is quite literally incapable of doing. Things, however, backfire as their talks end up unearthing secrets about their first time instead. Katie calls Robin a hypocrite and admits to having read Robin's diary, where she had learned that Robin had lost her own virginity at 16. We learn as well that Marshall and Lily had their first time together at college in the dorms, to the dismay of Ted, who was unfortunately Marshall's roommate and had to listen to the whole thing go down. Damn. Robin, meanwhile, confesses that although she had sex for the first time at 16, it was nothing like she had imagined, as barely seconds after she and her boyfriend had gotten it on, he flopped away from her, telling her that it definitely confirmed to him that he was most certainly gay. Damn. Lily informs Robin that it doesn't count since they never went all the way, but that just merely revealed to Marshall that Lily had gone some distance with her high school boyfriend Scooter, and that devastates him. Katie returns from her mini smoke break to inform Robin that she's going to go to Kyle's, and whilst Robin tries to convince her otherwise by telling her to wait for someone special, like Ted, for example, Katie points out the further hypocrisy in that statement, saying that Robin didn't love the many men she's had sex with since her first boyfriend. Matter of fact, Katie asks her if she loves Ted, and Ted, immediately recognizing that Robin is being put in a spot, pulls her away from the argument with Katie, telling her that she doesn't have to say it back, to which Robin points out that, of course, not everyone is as absolutely bonkers like Ted, who dropped the word on their first date. This in turn leads to them arguing, with Robin calling Ted an "I love you slut" and Ted calling her an "I love you prude." The next day, Robin shows up to Ted's apartment to let him know that Katie ended up not having sex with Kyle after all, and the person who had gotten through to her had been Ted, who at some point the previous day had called Katie aside to tell her about his first time, where he had hooked up with a classmate, and after they were done, promptly forgot her name and even took money from her to get away. He points out to her that 17-year-olds will say anything to have sex, even the nice ones. And that is what gets through to Katie, who ends up telling Kyle that she would like to wait a bit before they have sex. And Kyle, like the jackass that he is, dumps her as a result of that. Katie, though, is able to find comfort in the arms of her big sister Robin, who thanks Ted for speaking with Katie, even though she was quite surprised about the story that he had told because it was very un-Ted-like. Turns out that the inverse was the case, i.e. Molly, his classmate, who he lost his virginity to, is the one who immediately got out of bed after the act, took money from him before she bounced, never coming back to him again. Robin is moved by Ted's actions and the words finally fall out of her mouth as she tells him that she loves him. The next day, the old gang, alongside Katie, return to the Empire State Building to finally make their way to the top. Lily and Marshall resolve their argument about Scooter when Marshall casually mentions in response to Barney's statement that they were there the previous day that didn't really count. That is enough to spin Lily around in glee as she points out to Marshall that the same thing applies to her history with Scooter. She never went all the way with him, so she doesn't count her time with him as her first sexual experience. Her time with Marshall instead was her first. And side note, this entire episode just had me banging my head screaming, virginity is a social construct, damn it. The crew finally made it to the top, and afterwards they sit at McLaren's where everyone finally manages to get Barney to confess to the truth about his first time. Initially, whilst they were all spilling the beans of their first times, Barney kept quoting scenes from movies instead, giving the hint that he was quite uncomfortable with the truth. When pressed, however, he admits that he lost his virginity at 23 to his mother's 45-year-old friend Rhonda, who kept calling him Barry the whole time and had his sheets smelling like menthol cigarettes afterwards. The gang can tell that it's an experience that Barney doesn't want to relive, and they instead encourage him to tell them the dirty dancing story of how he lost his virginity, mentally erasing the truth he had just shared. The end. I know some of you probably find it strange that I decided to make a video about Barney and Robin being perfect for each other instead, after I had just watched an episode where Robin finally tells Ted that she loves him. Well, it's because whilst I don't doubt that Robin does indeed love Ted at the moment, and Ted is convinced that she's the woman of his dreams and who he wants to spend the rest of his life with, I still finished the episode drawing parallels between Robin and Barney in a way that screamed soulmate to me instead. What do I mean by that? So, a couple of months ago, I made a video, a Bridgerton video, because yes, people, I talk about other things outside of How I Met Your Mother. Anyway, a couple of months ago, I made a Bridgerton video addressing the fallacy of the opposites attract trope and statement, and I drew moments of similarities between the main couples of the show instead to point out that it wasn't opposites attracting, but characters who have similar traits or experiences being able to merge in a romance that, as the audience or readers, we found very satisfying. And I am not going to lie, I see the same thing happening with Robin and Barney, because this is a statement I've made by the side in different videos as throwaway thoughts, but this episode actually cemented for me just how perfect they are for each other. Now, Barney, we have established, is someone who struts about within the group like a peacock, preening and fluffing his feathers in the way he can to get their attention. And although Marshall and Ted do care for him sometimes, especially in instances where he wants them to come join him in his shenanigans, we instead get the feeling that Barney is more into their friendship than they are into said friendship with him. It's in the little ways in which we are subtly meant to see Barney as a third wheel in Ted and Marshall's friendship. Every time in season 1 when Barney declares himself as Ted's best friend, and in season 2 when he calls himself Marshall's best friend, both Ted and Marshall refute his claim and choose each other as their own best friends instead. And I don't blame them either. They have known each other and been in each other's lives since college. So far in the episodes we've seen, we haven't gotten any confirmation of when Barney joined the gang exactly, but we know he wasn't there from the beginning. The same can be said to apply to Robin as well. And I am not looking at this from the perspective that she isn't best friends with Lily. Clearly she is. But Lily, Ted, and Marshall have known each other since their first night at college. They have almost a decade of experience that Robin cannot begin to compete with, even as Lily's closest friend within the group. And I always just find myself subconsciously putting Robin in the same slot as Barney, where although they are both part of the larger group, they are excluded from the inner core of Marshall, Ted, and Lily because they just haven't been there as long and don't have that shared history with the trio. And so to bring it back around, it is why I found it interesting, and the point where the Robin and Barney fit each other best seed was first planted back in season 1 episode 14 when Barney had Robin as his wingman, and he's slightly taken aback and delighted at how easily she fits into that role. And even though he never actually admits it, because I'm sure he would think of it as a betrayal of Ted, but I thought that Robin was a way better wingman for him than Ted ever was. And that role that he kept wanting Ted to fit into, the shoes he wanted him to wear as his friend, Robin did that easily in the episode. In that episode, we saw just how good their banter was and how effortlessly Robin was able to give Barney what he wanted as a friend. And I don't know about you, but I haven't been able to look beyond that ever since. Then there's a bit with this episode where we see the characters reveal the truth about how they lost their virginity. I thought it was interesting to note that whilst Marshall and Lily lost theirs to each other, because of course they did, Ted, Robin, and Barney lost their virginity to people who seemingly took advantage of them in some way, particularly Barney's mother's friend. Ew. And yet, their reactions to their experience was very different. Ted continued to maintain his heart, wearing it on his sleeve in his interaction with others, even if he keeps doing it because he's more in love with the idea of love than the person he's actually with. Once again, check out my Ted Mosby the Con Artist video. Barney and Robin, meanwhile, have the opposite reaction, as we can see that experience most likely contributed heavily to souring their interactions with others and led to their quite jaded view on relationships. A view that they both share, where they think of it in terms of exit points and when the best time is to get out of a relationship. Add the fact that they are both open with their sexuality and how many partners they've had, don't really know how relationship works, especially with Robin, who is convinced that she's not girlfriend material. And then there's Barney, who has consciously built his home in a way that would dissuade women from getting any ideas, as he doesn't want to be anyone's boyfriend either. And I see the patterns that point out to how similar they are. And before you say that, well, Robin at least has heart and can fall in love, we can't say the same for Barney. I would like to point out that just as Robin's past relationship is what soured her and turned her into a commitment phobe that she was, until Ted showed up in her life, of course, we see the glimpse of Barney's past in season 1 episode 15, where we see that his ex was the one who turned him into the legendary Barney that we love and also want to kick in the pants as well. Add the fact that whilst Ted was dealing with Lily's stealing of Christmas in the previous episode, Robin was caring for a very sick Barney in some of the rare moments of vulnerability that we've seen of him that just, I don't know, reinforces for me just how good they can be together. The story that they could have together, these two unlikeliest to want or keep love characters deciding to find love with each other, call me crazy, but I don't know, it makes sense to me. And the threads are there. If only the writers would give up on this whole Robin is Ted's one bullshit so we can move on. Because I already have a video about how incompatible Ted and Robin are and how Ted's parents confirm that. If you haven't seen that yet, please check my How I Met Your Mother playlist. I am building quite the collection there as I watch along. If you agree at any point with what I've said or just found this video entertaining in any way, please do not forget to hit the like button. Share this video if you want to support me on Patreon if you can. If you can't, however, do consider checking out my other channels. One is my gaming channel and the other holds my ASMR content. I have both linked in the description box if they sound like something you might be interested in. Whichever the case may be, however, I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.